up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name's Stephen Wright, joined by Mr. William Monroe. Will, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing good over here. We got a pretty big week in our league of record here, our work league.
Yeah.
You and me going head to head.
Finally going head to head, yeah. I got the matchup pulled up. Want me to run down the matchups here?
Yeah. Give the listeners a little preview of our two teams there. I'm sure we've talked about them to a degree here on our end.
Yeah, certain players, I'm sure. So I have Cam Newton starting. You're going with Kyler Murray. Probably point Kyler Murray, given the Seattle matchup, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I have DJ Moore. You got Kenny Golladay. Probably point Golladay, but that's pretty close. New Orleans been giving up a lot of points.
Yeah, I think these receivers will be semi-close.
Yeah, I have Robert Woods to your Chris Godwin. I would imagine that's point to Godwin, given the matchup differences. But Godwin, he got like 7 points last week, right? Wasn't like a big week out of him.
Yeah, it wasn't huge. I don't think they really needed much.
Maybe.
There's 2 pick sixes. It kind of was all downhill. He only had 7. I'm a little more worried about like Mike Evans in that offense. Godwin, I think, seems to be pretty solid in his role.
Yeah, so he should be fine. My Ronald Jones to your Mike Davis, I would imagine that's more a point to me. Not that Mike Davis is going to be big, but Vegas is one of the worst teams against a running back, I think.
Yeah, I think you'll probably have the running backs here as my team's pretty hurt without Barkley.
Yeah, we got Josh Jacobs, my Jacobs against your Freeman. Both of them from a matchup standpoint actually poor. Tampa Bay's given up the 7th fewest points and Philly the 10th fewest. So they're both poor, but yeah, you got to imagine that goes to me, you would think. Next one kind of up in the air. Noah Fant on my end to your Austin Hooper. On the outset,
possibly. I might even be going Dalton Schultz. I'm still unsure at tight end here.
Yeah, we don't know if Fant's really going to play, so that's kind of hard to say. I mean, right now, Fant against Hooper, I would say point to Fant if he plays.
Yeah, if he plays, I mean, he's got more talent there, especially in the matchup against Kansas City.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving to the flex positions, it's my Slayton against your Chark. From a matchup standpoint, I believe it's dead even, really. Philly's getting up to 7th most points. The Chargers are giving up the 8th most. So really neck and neck. Weird Thursday games could be the differentiator in that one.
Yeah.
And then sticking with the Thursday theme, I have Fulgham and you have David Johnson. I think that is probably more point to you. Yeah, the Green Bay is giving up a lot to the running back. I thought so, but could be relatively even as well.
Yeah, and then I think overall the matchup's fairly even, projection-wise within 10 points. So, they're not projected to win big on either end.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll have a good idea of what's going to happen come Thursday, because I have Slayton, Fulham, and the New York defense. You have Freeman going. So 4 players in total going on Thursday. We'll have a general idea of how things are leaning.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Yahoo, I think, leans me 57-43, but projections are just that, projections until they become real points. So try not to get too hung up there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And then so it looks like you don't have a lot of decisions to make. You have Goddard there if you want to roll him out if he's playing. You got Schultz there, like you mentioned. I do have James Robinson, Gibson, Deontay Johnson, and MVS that are all start worthy. So I guess I could make some pivots depending on what happens Thursday. Although
in this first game,
like if
I don't imagine Goddard plays. So with him and Rager both down, and then obviously Parker's on bye. I don't really have too much. Justin Jackson's interesting. Possibly playing him, but I don't know over one of the 3 running backs that I'd play him over. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will be. But enough about our stuff. You want to jump into some start sits?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. As always, we'll start with a quarterback question here. We got Matt Stafford at Atlanta or Deshaun Watson versus the Packers.
This one's tough. I have them very close because I love the matchup for Stafford and Atlanta, even though Atlanta's offense looked really good last week. even, in a worst case scenario, he throws a couple picks like Kirk Cousins did. Kirk Cousins still was able to come out and sling it around and make up fantasy wise the value. So that's a really good matchup. I'm not sure exactly what the Packers, what their offense or their defense is against or just against the quarterback in general, but I do like Watson in this matchup because I imagine the Packers are going to come out and be able to move the ball on that Houston defense. So I think I lean slightly Watson, and I think it's the rushing baseline that's going to get him over the hump for me. But I think these are two great starts, both of them.
Yeah, it's tough. I see Watson the same way. The Packers are going to be able to score. It's going to force Watson to pass, and there'll be plenty of points there. But Stafford's got the fantastic matchup. We just haven't seen a lot out of Stafford this year. I think he's like a back end QB2. So they haven't been utilizing him the same way they have, say, last year. So that worries me. So I am going to lean a little bit Stafford because of that Atlanta matchup. But yeah, I have no issue with Watson either. They're both great matchups. So if that's the direction you want to go, I have no issue with that at all.
So we'll move on to running back position here. We're going to be looking at a PPR format. We have Antonio Gibson or Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah, and I think we got this in the doc wrong. Gibson is facing Dallas, correct?
He is on Washington.
Yes, we have him against Washington, which would be a difficult thing to do. Boy, this one is a toughie. I want to go McKinnon, given that Mostert's out. Now, we still don't know about Coleman and whether or not he'll return, but I think I have to go Gibson. That matchup is really hard to pass up against Dallas, given that Dallas's defense has been letting up a lot of points this year. And, the New England defense is good, despite losing everyone they lost in the offseason. So I think I'm going to go with Gibson here. How about you?
Does the way that McKissick has been being utilized give you any pause there? He seems to be the guy that's getting the ball through the air target-wise.
Yeah, and I think, but I can also balance that out on the McKinnon side of being like, well, Jeff Wilson's going to get the touchdown carries or Hasty's going to get work. So I think that could balance each other out. On the flip side, Dallas has been giving up so many points. I think they could both be fantasy irrelevant this year or week.
Yeah. I mean, part of me wants to go with McKinnon, but I think that's more just because I have to play him in a couple areas. Whereas in those areas, I think if I had Gibson, that seems like a better matchup. I don't know, because that Dallas and Washington matchup seems to be just primed for fantasy opportunity. And they seem to be fairly evenly matched. I don't know that one team gets far ahead of the other, but I kind of feel the same about New England and San Francisco. Two pretty solid defenses, but banged up or missing pieces, whether it be injury or not playing this year. And two offenses that, while they can be explosive, they seem like they're more running offenses. So I don't know that it's far apart, but I think I do lean Gibson slightly as well.
Yeah, and I think in both games, you could make the argument that they could both be high-scoring games. I feel like you could make the opposite argument as well, that they'll both be low-scoring, because the Dalton-led Dallas team sucked. Washington always sucks. So, like, if that game ended up low-scoring, it wouldn't surprise me. And, given the New England defense being good, the 49ers defense still putting it together, I could see that being low scoring. I don't think it's likely, but it wouldn't blow my mind if it was. So two interesting matchups for sure. But moving along, we got a little bit of a different one here, Will. PPR, rest of season. Would you rather have Jerry Jeudy or Jarvis Landry?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'm pulling up just kind of matchups here. And Jarvis still has his bye. He's got not really any super tough matchups, like Pittsburgh out of the way, and then they have Pittsburgh in Week 17. So they still have Baltimore, but other than that, there's not really any very difficult matchups. And obviously, he's going to be working with Baker the rest of the way, barring any injuries. While Jeudy has his bye out of the way, so that's something you got to consider as well. You're getting one free week here. Didn't, look great coming out of the bye. I think he only had about 5 PPR points, but he was in double digits the first 4 games. They got Kansas City this week, Kansas City again down the road there, New Orleans and Buffalo. But, matchups, lean with Jarvis. But I'm going to lean with the talent and what I imagine is going to be the opportunity if Drew Lock can get it together. I'm going to go Judy rest of the season here. It's close. Landry is probably a safer option. If you want the floor, you're probably going to look to Landry, getting you 7 to 10 points a game. But Judy's got that opportunity to really step it up and show the talent that he has.
Yeah, I agree. Sutton going down kind of opened the door for him there. And, you got to remember he's a rookie and, as time progresses, he's going to get better, you would imagine. And, he could be coming on stronger and stronger by the end of the year. You got to also keep in mind he hasn't had Locke, this entire time, or not entire time, but for the past few weeks. So, yeah, I think I lean Judy as well. Plus, Fant is due to potentially come back this week, but he's coming off an injury. Is it going to take him a couple weeks to get up to speed? He's a re-injury risk, I'm assuming. A lot of people are when they first come back. And if Fant misses time or he's rusty or slow getting back to speed, then that's just going to make Judy all the more valuable. So yeah, I'll go with Judy as well.
All right, so we're looking at PPR here as well, back to just week 7 here. And we got to pick 2 out of, looks like 5 options. So Jerick McKinnon against New England, Philip Lindsay against the Chiefs. I guess take into consideration you possibly having the option of Melvin Gordon. We have James White against the Niners, Laviska Shenault against the Chargers, and Robert Tonyan against Houston.
Ah, boy, yeah, this is there's a lot of interesting options here. Now, I think the latest on Melvin Gordon is they think he's going to play this week. Is that right?
I believe so, yeah. I haven't heard anything positive either way, but I think there's, no major injury and there's no suspension. It seemed like it was just an illness, and there was no word that it was COVID. So you'd imagine if it's just, flu or
It's supposed to be strep throat.
Okay, so it can linger, but I don't know that it would linger 2 weeks if he's doing everything right. So I would imagine he plays this week.
Yeah, so I guess on that front, I'll say if he plays, I'm not considering Lindsay, and if he doesn't play, then Lindsay's a lock. So we'll go that far on the Lindsay part. So he's in there, he's not in there. I'll kind of paint a couple different scenarios. I really don't know. I'm going to take out Shenault just because I don't fully trust him. He's got a decent matchup, but I would rather play these other options over Shenault. So I'm gonna remove him. Tonyan, I struggle flexing tight ends. We mentioned that he could put up, Green Bay as a whole could put up a lot of points against Houston. So I don't really mind it, but it's just not really my cup of tea. So you also have to consider Tevin Coleman. That's what makes this question tough. I think all indications are that Tevin Coleman's not going to play. And based on that, I think I'm okay playing McKinnon regardless of whether he actually plays or not. Because if he plays, it seems like he's not fully 100%. So I would still be okay leaning on McKinnon. So I'll say if Melvin Gordon plays, I'm going with McKinnon and James White. If he doesn't play, I'll go with McKinnon and Lindsay. I know that's a lot to take in, but there's a lot of question marks with this one. Where do you fall?
Yeah, so I am ruling Tonyan out just because we don't really like to flex tight ends. It's just a lot more risk there. I actually like Shenault a lot in this matchup. I think it's going to be likely pretty high scoring. Both defenses aren't playing great, but both quarterbacks can turn it on. So if Herbert can keep it going, and if Minshew can keep this a pretty competitive matchup, I like Shenault and I like White. I think that's a nice pairing because I think White has a nice floor while Shenault has pretty solid upside, but has a decent baseline. Lindsay, I'm there with you. It depends on if Melvin plays. I'm going to assume he doesn't here and say White and Shenault. I like McKinnon, but there's just a lot of other options. And if I had the opportunity of playing White and or Shenault over McKinnon, I probably do. So I'm locking in White, and then I think it's Lindsay or Shenault, depending on the Melvin situation.
Wow, so a fair bit different on that one.
Yeah. I mean, I just in PPR specifically, James White missed the 2 games, but he's got such a baseline, right? He had 13 PPR points and then 15 PPR points in his last 2 games with the bye in the middle there. 7 catches, 8 catches, 8 targets, 9 targets. So he's just got such a high baseline. If he gets in the end zone, you're great, but otherwise, you're pretty solid that you're going to get 10 plus points.
Yeah, I think my issue is I just never want to start him. I always look at everyone else and be like, well, McKinnon's got upside because it's McKinnon in the 49ers offense. Tanyan's got a lot of upside because of what's going on. Not that I would start Tanyan over James White, but you know what I mean? Like I always look at somebody and be like, well, I can craft the upside story more for this person than I can for James White. And then I ignore the floor story because I'm just somebody that ignores the floor story. 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. So in this one, I'm trying to pair him, right? I mean, McKinnon, I don't know that he has that much better of a chance of scoring a touchdown than White does, because you allude to it earlier with
Jeff Wilson,
the other running backs there, Wilson and Hasty, likely being more goal line guys, whereas White, probably will get more snaps in the red zone than McKinnon will, just because they're in shotgun, at the 10, right? And if he can catch a little dump off or a little out route turn upfield, he can get in the end zone. So there's not a ton of upside there, but I like the baseline, and then I'll shoot for the moon with Laviska in what I hope is a pretty high scoring game.
Yeah, that's fair. We're going to move to a quarterback one here. I think this one's really tough. We got Wentz versus the Giants or Bridgewater at New Orleans.
Yeah, this one is tough. I really like Wentz this week. Good matchup against the Giants. I know, it's tough to, bank on primetime games or specific games, but Carson Wentz has had some of his best games on Thursday, right? The Giants, I believe one of them was Thursday last year where he came out and played well. I think the Ertz either touchdown or drop or something point. I remember you harping on something of Ertz costing you a game one way or another last year. There's 2 or 3 games over the last 3 years, and Wentz has performed well on Thursday night for one reason, right? Take that for what you will. But I do think that they've played well against 2 very, very good offense or very, very good defenses, and then they get to go up here against the Giants at home. I really like that matchup. I know Bridgewater has been playing well, and the Saints are banged up. But I'm going to lean with the upside of Carson here on the Thursday game over Bridgewater. It's close. I'm not thrilled about playing either of them. But if I'm, in a streaming situation, I'm going to take Wentz.
Yeah, I have no issue with that, but I think I'm going on the opposite side with Bridgewater. And like as dumb as it is, I need some sort of tiebreaker, and I think the tiebreaker is going to be Wentz has rough weapon options, and it's a Thursday night game, and those games tend to be kind of wonky. Where, the Bridgewater story, he's been playing well. New Orleans is definitely going to be able to put up points on that defense. Bridgewater's going to have to play pretty well. So I will go with Bridgewater. Again, I have no issue with Wentz. I flip-flopped back and forth on this question a lot once I saw it. But if I had to pick, I'm going Bridgewater.
Awesome. So next up, we've got a pick 2 PPR matchup here. Jerick McKinnon at New England, popular guy here today. David Montgomery at LA, DeAndre Swift at Atlanta, Darrell Henderson at Chicago. Once again, half-point PPR.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of McKinnon questions out there this week, for good reason, because it is a confusing situation. But I like the 3 options or the 4 options that we have here, and that makes me remove McKinnon for all the reasons you had mentioned earlier when we were talking. It's just there's a lot of moving pieces there, and I don't want to play the game if I don't have to. To me, there's a big difference between starting a DeAndre Swift or a Darrell Henderson and a James White or a Laviska Shenault. So I'm going to remove McKinnon immediately. I'm also going to remove Montgomery because, he'll be fine, but, the upside is just kind of eh. So that leaves the 2 that I'm picking. DeAndre Swift against Atlanta. He finally had a nice breakout game last week. And Atlanta is a great matchup for all. So I'm not going to give that up. I will start Swift easily. And Henderson versus Chicago, it is a tougher matchup. Henderson does bounce kind of around a fair bit, depending on what they want to do with the running back position. But I want to shoot for his upside over, say, like a floor with Montgomery. So Swift and Henderson for me. What are you thinking, Will?
Yeah, this one's fairly easy for me as well. I'm locking in Henderson and Montgomery. They're the two that I know are going to get the volume, right? Maybe a little less on Henderson, but from what we've seen the last few weeks, they're rolling with him. They'll sprinkle in Malcolm Brown. For some reason, Cam Akers doesn't even get any carries last week. So he seems to be like a lock, and Montgomery doesn't have any competition. They're giving him the ball even if he's inefficient, so he just has so much volume. I'm locking them in. Kind of what you said with McKinnon, in a desperate situation, he's an option, but here he's easily the lowest of the four of these guys for me. Swift, I just want to see it again. I know it's a good matchup. From what I understand, I think Peterson was dealing with cold as well. So if he's healthy this week, he still may eat into it a bit. I'm going to wait and see there because I have two other good options, right? If this was take Montgomery or take Henderson out and we're picking 2 or 3, easy, one of them in Swift. But if I can do Henderson and Montgomery, I'm running with both.
Okay, fair enough. Our next one, we got 2 running backs, PPR, James Robinson against the Chargers or Kenyon Drake versus Seattle.
Yeah, man. It's still always so weird to see these questions here mid-season and think what you would have thought seeing them earlier in the season, right? Yeah, I think this one's fairly easy. You got to go with the guy that's producing consistently, and I'm gonna go James Robinson. I like the matchup. Both of them have good matchups, really. Seattle isn't great, but I think they've been beaten through the air more than on the ground, and I imagine Arizona's going to be playing catch up, or maybe they can keep pace, but I imagine they're playing catch up with Seattle. Whereas I think in order for Jacksonville to win, they're going to have to set that running game up with Robinson to then work Minshew in the passing game in as well. And Robinson's been consistent, so I'm going to roll with James Robinson.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be on the opposite side of things. His fantasy output has been consistent.
Buying the big game?
Yeah, I'm buying the big game. I'm more buying the matchup in that Drake is up against a defense that gives up points, so he'll be fine. I worry about James Robinson now, and like his fantasy outpoint's been consistent, but last week he had I think 12 attempts ish and had like 30 yards. The week before that he had 13 attempts. I forget the exact amount, but he even had 50 yards. He keeps getting saved by like a touchdown here and there, which you can't take that away, but you also can't really rely on that. It's a hard stat to rely on. So he worries me. He could be really good, as we've seen in the past, or does he have a 40-yard game and not getting a touchdown and suddenly you got burned? That's my worry with James Robinson. I had both of them. I've benched Robinson for the week. I've traded away Drake. So it's definitely a personal decision for me, but I'm going to go with the matchup against Seattle. That's really what is defining the answer on my end.
And Seattle's actually been pretty good against the run. It looks like they're, top in the top 10 against the run, for defenses. So, I think they've been getting torched through the air, but they do have a pretty solid run D. So I think that was a hesitation for me, but yeah, both pretty solid plays, so I don't mind either one. But flipping over here, we have a quarterback question: Big Ben against Tennessee, Justin Herbert against Jacksonville.
I really just don't see a reason to play Big Ben. They're trying to limit him. Tennessee's a pretty good defense. I'm the guy that takes a while to start trusting somebody, and I'm in on Herbert at this point. I mean, he's put up points against all kinds of defenses. The Jaguars defense is far from top tier. If we were talking the Baltimore defense or something, maybe I would consider Big Ben, but against the Jaguars, I'll take Herbert all day.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've picked up Herbert in the league that I had Dak. Managed to get a win, pull it out there on Monday night with Herbert on bye. And I think at this point I'm rolling with Herbert the rest of the way. It's actually interesting. I did. I mentioned I think last episode or 2 weeks ago that I had gotten a bunch of the quarterbacks. So we'll cut them all. Cut most of them except for Herbert and Fitzpatrick, and I was able to actually on the waivers for free swap Fitzpatrick for Tua. So we've got 2 rookie quarterbacks here running. So we'll see what Tua can do for the upside. But from here on out, I'm going to be running with Herbert. He's got a nice little stretch coming up.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to be good. Half point PPR, will Robert Woods versus the Bears or Brandon Cooks versus the Packers?
Tough. I mean, in a nutshell, I'm going to go Woods on the talent, but the opportunity is definitely going to be there for Brandon Cooks, and he definitely came back to life. He's playing a lot better the last, I think week or so. I don't know if it was just this week or 2 weeks ago. Let me pull it up here. Yeah, 22 2 weeks ago, 13 this week. Green Bay, it looks like, is pretty solid against the pass. So I'm sorry, 30 and 22 in a PPR. He said half point PPR. Yeah, so 26 against Jacksonville, 17 against Tennessee. Getting the targets, he's getting in the end zone, which is big. I think I'm going to lean Woods just because I think he's going to get the opportunity. But man, Brandon Cooks' numbers: 8 catches on 12 targets, 9 catches on 9 targets. I don't know that you can stay. You got to stay. I think you got to stay in the Flames here. Actually, I think I'm going to pivot here and go with Cooks. He is, it's a great matchup. He's getting all the opportunity there. I think you got to roll with him.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I don't mind Woods. I mean, he's got a really tough matchup, and it's worrisome. I've considered benching him in our matchup, given that I have so many other options that I could choose from.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm gonna stick with Cooks. We laid out the narrative when we were picking Watson. That game could be high scoring. Packers should be able to put up points against Houston defense. So I think they'll be looking to Cooks plenty. So I'll go with Cooks here.
Seems like an interesting buy, maybe in Dynasty too, for people to look at, because he's playing well, so it's probably going to be expensive here. But he doesn't have a ton of long-term outset, so if you need a wide receiver to kind of just get you through this year, not a bad option.
Yeah, absolutely.
So last matchup here, standard scoring: T. Higgins against the Browns, Travis Fulgham against the Giants.
I'll go with Fulgham here. I mean, the matchup is a solid matchup. Again, the Thursday games do worry me a little bit, but I like that matchup, and he's surely going to get fed plenty. I like Higgins. He's got a pretty good matchup as well. I could see that game being pretty interesting, but also, Cincinnati, Cleveland games could also be pretty low scoring, as we've seen plenty of in the past. And there's just a lot of other options there. I mean, is AJ Green coming back to life? That's going to impact Higgins a fair bit. So I'm going to avoid that if I can. And it's an easy one for me because I love the matchup against the Giants.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. You laid it out. There's just no other really options with Fulgham there. You're going to have Richard Rodgers likely starting at tight end. You have Boston Scott and Corey Clement at running back. You have Deshaun Jackson back, which I think, may help Fulgham more than it hurts him, because if he's healthy and he's doing what he does, he's going to be the guy that's going over the top. Maybe he shortens the drive by catching a deep touchdown, but if he can keep the defense and the safeties back, Fulgham may be able to get even more targets. So, I like T. Higgins. You're banking on touchdowns a lot of times with him. He's gotten, decent targets, 9, 7, 8, 8 the last few weeks. Hasn't converted all of them into catches. Last week, 6 of 8, I think, was his best, but 125 yards and, and looks like a carry too. But yeah, just Travis Fulgham just going to have so much opportunity.
Absolutely. So that's going to take care of our start-sit questions for the week. We're going to move to some trade per the usual. We're going to start with some Dynasty. We got a half-point PPR Superflex, Will. You ever have Juju or Will Fuller and a top 5 21 first?
That's tough. I think I go with the first there. I mean, Fuller, even in a heads-up matchup, I think I still go the top 5 first. Superflex, especially, if you can get anywhere close to landing Trevor Lawrence. So yeah, I think that's a no-brainer, and I think he's the 101. So if this can net you the 101 somehow, lock that in. But even if it doesn't, it gives you an opportunity to be within striking distance, right? Maybe it's the 4th pick, and you can pair a couple players up to get him. But I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be one of those generational talents. No matter where he goes, he just has it all. He's been unreal in college. And, outside of Pat Mahomes, there's not too many other players, across fantasy football that you'd really want to have over him because he just has that staying power at the right position and just the pedigree coming out. I think this is a no-brainer there. Juju's solid, and I imagine he's probably on a new team after either this year or next year. But Fuller's going to give you decent production compared to what Juju's doing. So if you can get a top 5 first for him, I'll take that.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Juju's future is a question mark. We've said it in the past on the show with Deontay Johnson emerging, Claypool emerging, James Washington looking pretty good. They're not going to pay Juju. It just doesn't make sense to. So where is he going to go? Is the situation going to be better? Is it going to be worse? I don't know. And like you said, with the super flex, top 5 first is worth a lot. And, I know you talked a lot about Trevor Lawrence, but that's also the benefit of super flex is that he is going to be the 101. And if you don't end up with the 101, you end up with the 102 or the 102 or 103. Now a top tier running back has fallen to you. Wherein, our kind of like you look at our league, Will CEH went first. Jonathan Taylor went second. Dobbins went third. Superflex Burrow's going first. So if you have the 102, you suddenly have a shot at CEH where you didn't have a shot at him with the 102 unless you had a real big JT supporter in a standard dynasty league. So, even if you miss out on Lawrence, you still get, someone's going to fall to you in that position. So yeah, it's pretty easily the first and Fuller for me as well.
So we'll get one more dynasty trade here before a couple redraft. So dynasty PPR, our boy J.K. Dobbins or a unspecified 21 first and unspecified 21 seconds. We don't kind of know where they're falling.
Yeah, I think I'll go Dobbins as long as they're both not like super early.
Yeah, I mean, if this is like the 101, and even so, like Dobbins is someone you were considering in the top 2 or 3 this year, right? So
yeah, it's hard. Like that probably makes it fair, and you'd have to have like a 0-6 team that roster is just trash. Because it's hard to make that assumption. But yeah, I mean, a first and a second for Dobbins, I would pay that for Dobbins because I still believe in him long term.
Yeah, but if you're the team that's 0-6 and that's the only way that this offer's enticing enough for the Dobbins owner, do you really want to give up those 2 assets, right? A top, let's say 2 or 3 pick in the first round, and then a very high second round pick. I just don't know that this can, unless it's, a team that owns somebody else's pick.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was mentioning it. Because, yeah, it doesn't make sense if you own the pick. But if you, what happens in our dynasty so often, somebody else ends up owning the 101 because somebody trades their first and they shouldn't be. But, yeah, from that standpoint, I would hold the first. But, yeah, if you own that potential 101, then it's a little bit of a different story. But yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I'm sure some people are kind of fading on Dobbins with Ingram not looking good. You would think that his usage would be better. They're still relying on Gus. So I think that's where this idea is coming from. Would you agree with that?
I think that's exactly what it is.
Fair enough. But at the end of the day, I think we're in agreement there. Let's go ahead and move over to some redrafts. We got a half-point PPR. James Robinson and Jonnu Smith or David Montgomery and Travis Kelce. So basically, you're downgrading from James Robinson to Montgomery and upgrading from Jonnu to Kelce or vice versa. What side do you like there?
Yeah, this one's pretty easy for me. I'm taking the Montgomery Kelce side. I know Montgomery hasn't been super efficient, but I don't think there's a huge drop-off from Robinson to Montgomery because they're both getting a ton of work. And Robinson isn't on the sturdiest of floors, right? If there is any, misstep on his end, they're not committed to him really for much at all. Whereas Montgomery's first or second round pick, he's, pretty locked and loaded there. And you know what you're getting in Kelce. Jonnu's good, but Kelce is the guy on that offense. So pretty easy, Montgomery and Kelce.
Yeah, same. It would be more interesting if James Robinson was on that pace he was on earlier in the year when he was just crushing it. It would be a little bit tougher for me, but he's come back down to earth a little bit. And like you said, I'm not going to pass up the upgrade to Kelce. That's huge. So I will take the Montgomery Kelce side here as well.
Awesome. Next up, redraft here. We've got full PPR. Rojo and Jonnu again, or CMC?
Oh boy, the McCaffrey questions are always tough because it's just a matter of when is he coming back. I've toyed around with something similar, like should I send Rojo and try to get McCaffrey, but you just don't know when he's coming back. Like if he doesn't come back till week like 9, 10, and then he's got a bye week 13. I mean, you're missing out on a lot of time for a guy that could come back kind of slow. Like, let's not forget. I mean, and Barkley last year came back quickly, but he had a high ankle sprain, if I recall, last year, and he came back, and he was not Saquon Barkley for many, many weeks. Now, again, he only took like 2 weeks off or something, so a little bit different, but high ankle sprains linger, man. They ruin seasons sometimes. So you could make this trade to get burned, but on the flip side, Rojo is slated to lose his job at any given moment, despite how good he is. He's a fumble away, so that's always worrisome. It's not like he's some locked and loaded guy. But with all that in mind, if I'm a contender and I can afford to wait for CMC, I'll take CMC. If I'm not a contender and I can't wait for him any longer, I'll take Rojo and Jonnu and try to buy some wins now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it, right? In a vacuum, I'll take McCaffrey, rest of season. But if I'm 3-3 or worse, I got to take the Rojo Jonnu side. I'm hoping maybe I can get more than them for CMC. But if this is the best and only offer I have, and I just need to get a running back to plug in, I don't mind it. But yeah, if you're 4-2 or better, and you can afford to trade Rojo and Jonnu and get CMC, for your stretch run here, seems like a no-brainer to me.
Okay, and our final trade question of the episode here, Will, PPR, Robert Woods or Amari Cooper? Straight up.
Yeah, this one's tough because I'm just not sure what to think of the whole Dallas offense and Amari Cooper. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they can be as bad again as they were against Arizona. Bad defense that just this offense just seemed like they just weren't ready to play. They were all out of sync. Zeke was fumbling when they're trying to rely on him. I imagine things got to get better there, but there's just so many weapons, and I just don't trust Dalton that much that I think I lean Woods in this scenario. Cooper's definitely got the upside, but I think the floor is a little lower even now. So I'm going to go Woods.
I really think I fall in line with the exact thinking. Like, I like Amari Cooper. I'd be picking him with Dak easily. But with Dalton, I don't know. And maybe it was just one game from Dalton. He's a little bit rusty, but that's tough. But I'll go with Woods in a vacuum. If you're somebody that likes your upside and you like rolling the dice, then, Cooper's fine. But that performance was kind of worrying. So I will go with Mr. Woods as well.
Awesome. I think that wraps up our trade and start sit discussions here this week. Good luck, everybody, in your Week 7 matchups. Hopefully everyone's teams remain relatively healthy here. And have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. Until next week, trust your board.